Anna, I'm so happy to have you on today. Super excited. And actually, the reason why you're here today is because of another podcast. I heard an interview with you and I was blown away by your passion and what you're trying to do, your mission, and also your story. So I knew I had to connect with you, and we connected on LinkedIn. And now you're here and you get to share your story with our listeners as well. So first, please introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I've made so many amazing LinkedIn friends over the last couple of years, and especially through the pandemic as well. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited that you invited me. For your listeners, my name is Diana Kakkar, and I'm the founder of MAES London. MAES London is a high-end garment manufacturing studio in North London. We started 5 years ago, so it's been a beautiful journey of working with designers and working with amazing, really creative businesses to make their dreams come true. And the mission, my personal mission that I'm on a mission to change the perception towards luxury manufacturing, and at the cost of sounding crass, but I just want to make manufacturing more cool and more sexy, so that like Vogue magazines and BOF and the Harper's Bazaar can feature manufacturers like us because we've got a story to tell.
And it's not just about the story. Of course, the story is really important, but it's also a part of the product. You are the product, because you are the ones making the product. It's not just the fancy designer that gets to put its name on your stuff. You're actually the ones creating it, of course, with someone's idea, but you're the hands on it. And especially now with what's happening in the world, with manufacturing being not so great in all places around the world, I think transparency, quality, and craftsmanship is something that needs to be brought back into the light. And also with the throwaway culture, it's a part of the products, the quality products, to make people to understand that actually your clothing that you are making, they're not something that you can just throw away. It's something to be cherished and valued, and the quality is going to last forever, hopefully, right? But first, tell us a little bit about how you got into this. Why manufacturing?
Why manufacturing?
Yes.
Like, that's what I keep asking myself. Well, I guess the story starts when I was probably much younger. So I wouldn't say the story started 5 years ago when I had a eureka moment. The story started when I was perhaps maybe 5 or 6. And I was probably a child who loved eating cakes and loved eating ice creams and didn't exercise enough to make sure that I couldn't basically fit into my own clothes of my age group. So I had to go to a tailor to get my clothes done for my sizing. And quite often I had to alter clothes from perhaps my neighbors or my mums so that they could fit me. So I understood the power of engineering clothes and how essential it is and how impactful it can be for a person, a man, a woman, a child, perhaps like me, who had possibly a lot of I was bullied for being overweight. So the journey became personal quite early on for me. And as I kind of kept on, going into adolescent years and realizing that there was this power that my seamstress or my tailors back home in India would have to change the way I kind of looked at myself. I knew that there was a respect that got associated with them, and they always became a very, very close part of my upbringing in a way. But as I was growing up, my parents, I come from a very, very modest background. So my parents knew that education was always going to be an important part of my life. So they pushed me towards doing one of those typical South Asian, MBAs and the lawyers and the doctors and the engineers. And I knew that I was probably more gravitated towards economics. So I did a bachelor's in commerce with a master's in economics. And I majored in economics. And then I realized that I wanted to go back into the fashion industry, but this time as an insider. The dream was to do an MBA so that I could land a job with Kering or LVMH, something in that corporate world. But I felt that I didn't know enough about the fashion industry to make an impact. So I enrolled myself back into college, did a fashion degree, And I was a mature student, perhaps because I'd already done a degree and going back into the fashion cycle. And that's where my love for fashion making and the business of fashion kind of came together. Fast forward a couple of years, moved countries, went to Australia, went to New York, came to UK, worked across designers, worked with many factories trying to make sure that their supply chain was kind of intact, their product was getting delivered on time, their product was on spec on time. And I realized that there was possibly a gap in the market for a factory to come in and make designers' jobs easier. Like that was it, right?
Yes.
All I wanted to do was, if the designer really likes to design these beautiful clothes, they should be able to work with a factory that can translate those vision into those beautiful garments that he's thinking on the runway or she's thinking on the runway. And the product that's leaving the factory floor to the shop floor looks exactly how the designer wanted it to be. No compromises, no delays, no, I guess like soured relationships with manufacturers, just a friendly factory that designers like to work with.
And also that someone wants to work with many seasons, years to come, not something, oh, they screwed us over, we have to go to another one. We have to change. To have this trusted relationship with someone, long lasting relationship, someone they can, trust and work together with forever.
Exactly. And I think I'm so glad you bring that up, because I worked with factories in pretty much all of my 15 years of career before I started one, right? But as a designer, or as from the brand side of things. But I made sure like they were always paid on time. I made sure they were like, when I said production would start then. I understood like if like a thread was not working for the fabric, I would take the next flight over to that factory, even like at the cost of my personal life, like just make sure like they were working, because they've got bills to pay. I've got bills to pay.
Everybody's got bills
to pay. So I respected that, and because of that, I just had amazing factory relationships. But my designers were loving the fact that I was doing a great job, making sure like the product was getting there. But even despite that, you can see how there are so many chances of error, or there's so many things that can go wrong. And when something does go wrong, unfortunately, the blame culture is very, very strong in that manufacturing world, right? Like, why did you not tell me the zip was short? Or why did you not tell me that you couldn't do that collar? Or why did you not tell me the fabric was wrong? And now I have like 100 units that I can't sell. Whose responsibility is that? And that toxic culture between a designer and manufacturer, that language has changed so much in the last like 5-7 years. But the way we work with our designers, we call them our partners, not our clients, because we are working equally hard to make your dreams come true. So, and like if something's going wrong, it's becoming our problem, not only just your problem.
Totally. And tell me a little bit about, and now, your process, you mentioned the process. What's your process compared to how other manufacturers are doing it? With, let's say we're a new brand, our listeners, they're new brands. Yeah. They call you up. Hello, Diana. So how's this working?
Great, good question. So we are, whether it's a privilege or just the way things have been working in the UK, we are quite privileged to be able to choose the clients that we're working with, right? But we've got a filter. We put the filter of the P's that like the 5 P's that we kind of talk about. So we choose a client based on the filters are people, product, planet, profit, right? So that's how we choose our clients. So we work with people who respect our people. We work with the product, which is right for MAES London. We work with the people and the product, which is safeguarding our planet. And through all of that, we are hoping to make a bit of profit. So that's our filter system, right? And if you came in and you were like this amazing, duo that I can see in front of me, but you came into my studio and said, hey, I need 1,000 t-shirts. These are the t-shirts that I need you to make. That's not a product I'm excited about. That's not a product that I want to like even use my time, my energy in this beautiful studio for. So that would be like you're great people, you respect the work that we're doing, but the product's not right for us. So we always kind of end up choosing the brands based on that principle. But apart from all of that, what is really working for us, that we are not just a manufacturer, we are the hybrid between a design studio and a manufacturer. And that has been a good success formula, and it's qualitative because you can't translate it down to a price. It's very qualitative. Like, I've studied fashion design, I've worked in the industry for so many years. Most of my core admin team and my managers have studied fashion design, and I've worked with international designers across the world. And the product that is coming into our studio from our clients is passing through all of these beautiful, amazing experience before it gets to the factory floor. And then once it gets from the factory floor, it's being processed through that, the quality check is happening, and then it's passing back through this amazing core team. So it's got like this one filtration process and the second filtration process. And that means a product that is coming to you already back to the warehouse or to the clients, it's resolved in so many ways that perhaps you haven't had a chance to like think about it in so much detail. And that speciality is what is actually making us, making our reputation very strong in the industry.
And I mean, now you have the luxury to choose your clients, but when you started your business, how did you start out? Did you use your network to find your clients? And also, I'm thinking about, I mean, you come from the economics background. Were you ever afraid of starting a manufacturing in Europe? So
I think I will probably put that to stupidity or naivety. I don't think my economics brain came in. My entrepreneur adrenaline was like driving the decision forward. But two questions, and maybe I'll tackle the first one because it's a shorter answer. How did I find my first clients? So I believe in something called invisible PR, right? The invisible PR is when I'm not in the room and someone's talking about me in good light or negative light. That could be invisible, negative or positive PR. And I think I would say that I've always been really passionate about the product from the very beginning, like since I started my career. And because I'm passionate about the product, I'm detail oriented and I'm process oriented, where I look at like the product, pricing, time, delivery, etc. I look at the whole package. My invisible PR was probably really strong. So when I started MAES London, and I told a few friends in the industry that, hey, I'm starting a studio, like the orders were coming through because they were like, hey, Diana's starting a new studio. Like, the product would be good. You'll get the product back in time. Like, she knows her stuff. And that invisible PR propelled our first few clients, which snowballed into like the next set of clients. And, it went into from pattern cutting, it went into sampling, and we made these samples. They were so beautiful. And they were like, hey, we've taken it to the other factory. Yes, they're 10 pounds cheaper, but they don't give me the quality that you are giving me. So I'm going to come back to you. So we started doing production from the sampling. And then once we did that, we're like, hey, we're designing the second season. Can you do the second season? And like suddenly our pipeline was just growing based on that. But it came from a place of passion for the product. Like, we're so passionate. I love my industry. I love what I do. Don't think I could do anything else, even if you forced me to. So, and that passion translates into the quality that we bring to the table. The entrepreneur journey, I think I always wanted to do something, and I wanted to do something of my own. And coincidentally, when I moved to the UK, I had a full-time job and I was in a different state. And for personal reasons, I came back to London. I was in Manchester, moved back to London, and I didn't time it right because I just had 6 months left on my visa to kind of get a new job. And I guess for a new employer, I knew I could renew it for sure. Like, I knew that the visa is 6 more months, but like I need to schedule my next appointment, which will give me my next 5 years kind of a thing. But for the employer, I think they were like, hey, that's flight risk. Like, I don't want to like take someone on for 6 months for the duration, etc., etc. So I was like, you know what, if that's the case, I know my work. I'm just going to set up a limited company and start freelancing. And that's how I started freelancing from all of the same designers who probably didn't want to commit to having a full-time employee on board. And I just had a roster of different clients working with different factories across all of these. I worked with European factories, Asian factories, Southeastern Asian factories. And I knew that I could get their work done. So I knew I had to like manage my own flights and manage my own schedule and like, create a budget for it. And how do I expense that? And if I'm taking the same flight, but I'm dealing with 3 clients across 4 factories, can I split the cost across those, So the running the business side of things started coming quite early on. Never did I decide at any point of time that I would have my own factory. Like that was not the idea. The idea would have been setting up something like what you guys are doing, like a consultation that you could like have different consultants and like work with different factories. I think what happened was one time, a big client of mine, and we just couldn't get this project off board because this was a new product. And they wanted, I think this might be actually resonating with quite a few of your listeners. So I'll probably go into a little bit of detail. So
please do everything tactical, everything tangible. They love it. So go on.
Exactly. I think this is relevant because this case study kind of happens often, even in our today's life. So this client was beautiful, like they did really premium luxury jersey sweatshirts, right? Like think Acne Studios, like that kind of quality, really premium. They had their market space completely defined. They were selling those jersey sweatshirts, really heavy loop back, beautiful jersey at a really good competitive price, but luxury market. All of it was made overseas, and their supply chain for that was absolutely perfectly nailed. And because their menswear department was growing so well, they decided to launch womenswear. But in women's wear, as people may know, but they wanted to do women's wear like tracky bottoms and sweatshirts and lighter t-shirts and possibly a silk dress and a light silk printed jacket. So the task, which was and the time frame was, they were like, next season we want to do that. So these are my designs ready, but they didn't anticipate the supply chain research that needs to go into place to put a new product in an existing business plan already. So they came to me with this idea of like, hey, we're looking for like this, this is a new product, silk jacket, embroidered, silk trousers, embroidered, printed. And I was like, look, suddenly you're moving from a very linear supply chain to a very diversified supply chain. And you're also spreading your costs a bit. So you're also spreading your supply chain, you're spreading your costs a little bit, so you won't be able to like get your product out to the market really well. And because they wanted to get the product out to the market, we were compromising on the quality. We were compromising just to make sure like it had to meet the photo shoot, it has to make the sales. But that's when like the product doesn't have enough time to breathe, you don't have enough time to test the product, and you're also exposing yourself to more risks, because your minimums could be dropping down. You haven't had enough time to merchandise your product. And that was a time when I realized that you can't have one glove fits all factory. And you can't be a brand who just works with one factory all the time. You've got to spread your risks, and you need to have a niche product, niche factory to deliver your product. And MAES London became an ideation from that, because we realized that there was a niche in the industry for evening gown dresses, bridal dresses, for more designer focused labels and perhaps high-end studios who could trust the factory with that.
So your products, what products are you product types are you working with right now?
So we are known for our evening dresses, bridal dresses, corsets, quite a few show styles or detail-oriented show styles. Like I wish I could show you a glimpse into the studio. I'm looking at maybe 6 ways of sequins and embroidered crystal fabrics right now.
We'd love to come to you and do another session, maybe film in the
please.
studio and do
that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. You mentioned, I wrote it down here, the eureka moment. Please go on. I'm intrigued.
Yes, the eureka moment. So my last job before MAES London was with a luxury fashion designer, Erdem. And I was managing his studio there, and just had like, I think I would probably say I've been so lucky to have so many amazing jobs in my career, but I do feel that the cherry on the cake for me was my last stint before MAES London at Erdem, because it just polished everything together. Like it made me a full package in my own head, not for recruiters, because for recruiters, they couldn't figure out where to place me, because was I a production coordinator, was I a production manager, was I a PD or a garment tech, or was I a studio coordinator, atelier manager? So for recruiters, they couldn't find me a job because I was ticking a lot of the boxes. And I don't know where, like, I don't know in your country, but like in UK, like I feel people get pigeonholed very easily. Like if you've been a garment tech, you're just going to be a garment tech and you can't be anything else, you know? So, and because I've moved countries, I felt like it was easy for recruiters to not be able to find me the perfect match for me. So I knew I was always responsible for my own career path. And the eureka moment came in when I was at Erdem, and I realized that there were designers out there. There were these beautiful designers out there with these beautiful clothes, and they needed a good factory who understand how much dedication goes from so many team members to make that one product. Like the embroidery designer has done its job perfectly, working closely with the pattern cutter, working closely with the fabric and the fusing swatches. And the garment tech has thought about what binding has gone into what part of the garment, because they don't want to cause bulk. And they needed a factory who understood and respected those specifications. And that's when MAES London came through.
Brilliant idea.
Fantastic.
And the thing with you knew how to solve the problem, so you knew exactly how to do it. Also, I'm sure your economics background kind of solved the figures for you. So like, yes, this is a solid business case, but also you knew that there was this need. And of course you had the contact. So basically you just had to make it happen.
Yeah. There was
and
no
also,
plan B.
I was just thinking back to what you said earlier in the interview, is how fantastic it is if you get some kind of life lesson. If you just do a good job, be a good person, and you're passionate about something, how you kind of can, connect the dots afterwards, and, will help you later in life, even if you don't know what you're going to do later, but it's just helpful. I think it's fantastic.
How closely, sorry, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, Baz Luhrmann has like this song, Red Sunscreen, and I always live by that. And it says, in the end, the race is long and it's only with yourself. So like, everyone's doing their own races, and, some people are like, hey, I'm on this job and I'm on this salary. And I'm like, yeah, good for you. But like, that's not where I want to be. And I think especially with social media coming into play, we have, for the first time in so many years, we've got a preview in other people's lives. Very intimate preview in other people's lives. So we create a story of other people's lives in our own head. But if we don't control the narrative of our own story, if we don't know the story that we are trying to create for ourselves, it's easy to live a very dissatisfied life. And I think perhaps for me, I didn't know where I wanted to go. I knew that I didn't want to launch a fashion label, but I knew that like I had all of this experience and I needed to package it into one thing and help other businesses who were struggling to find a good supply chain.
Yeah. And I was thinking, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about the designers that you're working with. Just for our listeners, how to get an understanding of how you guys work. How closely are you working together with your designers? How much are they a part of the process and about the creations? Do they just hand off stuff and you take it from there? Or are you, like you mentioned earlier, in a true partnership where everything kind of goes back and forward?
Yeah, maybe I can give you a little bit of an example of like what we do. So we have three branches at MAES London. And the three branches of MAES London are development, sampling, and production. The sampling and production is branched under something called CMT manufacturing, which is cut, make, trim. That means the designer has thought about the patterns, the fabrics, the designs. They've got their own team kind of like resolving the fits, etc., etc. And what comes to us is something called a paper pattern with a spec sheet, with the fabric, and perhaps a sample that they would like us to follow. And we are required, or we are commissioned to make the CMT samples or CMT production. This, in the truest form, a factory kind of does that. A CMT factory just does that. Where we become hybrid is the development side of things, where we would sit with the designer, understand your mood boards and understand what your color boards are, what your vision is, what big vision is. Are you a dress designer? Are you a trouser designer? Are you a lifestyle designer? Like, do you have, I don't know, accessories and shoes planned in this collection, or is it just clothes? And going through all of these questions, we understand what is required out of us, and we would help them design their collection. Sometimes designers would come with their own designs, but sometimes they might need us technically to design the collection. Like, does it have a facing? Does it need a lining? Like, how are you stabilizing the neckline? So all of these technical questions is where we kind of come into play. And then we take their fabrics, make the patterns, make the toiles, do the fittings in-house, and then resolve the product, make the spec sheet, resolve the product, and then pass it down our CMT sampling and production way. And it depends on which branch of the clients you are in. But of course, like, we are much more interwoven with the development clients. The CMT sample and CMT production, we are very much relied on for our technique and possibly our skill and craftsmanship. But the partnership with, whether it's the designers or the designers team, because most of the houses that we work with could have like a team of like 20 developers, fabric developers, or garment techs. So whether it's a designer or the designer's team, we work very closely, because they need, like, if they're looking for the scallop edge in the new collection, do we have a machine which does the scallop edge? Can we source a machine in the UK that can do that scallop edge? Or like, if the crochet is in trend, or like, do we have a crochet machine, or can we use a crochet fabric with a woven fabric? So I think it just comes down to like creating that partnership with the supply chain is so key, because it enables you and empowers you to do the best thing for your creative vision, perhaps. And I guess it comes from my Indian background, because when I was studying fashion design, we had a mill who was like 20 minutes away, and I could speak to the mill and I'm like, hey, I'm planning to like use a green color, and they're like, hey, the green color doesn't exist right now, but we have a pink color in stock, and we've got a lot of dead stock, so do you want to use that for your collection? And then I would go to my local dyer and I'm like, I just need like this ombre dye, can you bleach it? So all of these supply chains was possible. It enabled me to design the bigger picture.
I'm just thinking, I hear that you can help designers and brands with most things. I mean, you have the technical expertise, but do you have any, I guess you're approached by many brands, all sizes, but do you see a typical mistake or something that it's where they're usually very unprepared, that you see this is something that you really think the brand should have in order before contacting you?
Yeah, the filtration process comes in, for sure. I think the straight answer is I need a designer to have thought through their product. The tech pack needs to translate that product into that information. Like, I need that information to do my job, and it's not my job to extract that information from the designer's head and convert it into paper, because I need the designer to tell me, or I need the brand to tell me what is required out of me, and what is required out of me. So the spec sheet is really, really important. The tech pack is really important. I would love a sample. I would love to understand if they have any visibility on the price points, like how, like what is the cost that they're trying to get to? Like, what is the retail price that they're trying to get to? Are they going through the wholesale model, or are they direct to consumer? Like, do they understand how many like different profit margins that they need to make their business successful? Because I'm in business while they are in business. So if I actually if they spend all their money on production, but they don't have anything left to dispatch their goods to the customer, I'm not getting my next order from them. That means I need to do all of this hard work again for the next designer. So I love working with fashion designers, but I love doing business with business owners. And I think like if there's a brand who comes in with their product and their business head on, they are the perfect marriage for us.
This is it. And that's why we're talking apparel entrepreneurship and not fashion. That's why we're talking about margins and prices and calculations. And it's because exactly this, because otherwise you're just having a cute little project, a side gig. But if you really want to be in business for a long time, have a sustainable business, growing business, you definitely need to know and understand your figures and be able to calculate and make projections and look at the market, look at make competitor analysis, be able to understand fabric traces in regards to the price that you're going to put to the market. It all needs to add up, and also make sure that the people that are actually creating the garment, that they actually get what they deserve, their pay as well, and not they get 20 cents in whatever weird country where they can't even, buy food for the money. So
I think there's a lot of improvement to be done in that, now being an insider in the factory, I can see the challenges of running a factory and running a manufacturing studio. The challenges are that of pricing becomes the selective factor for most teams. But at the same time, like one of the things that we try to do is if it's a brand who's come to us with a whole range, or we are the only factory, we like to see, do you have a 3-year plan? Do you have a 5-year plan? Like how many units are you trying to be a factory that, are you trying to be a brand that is producing 20,000 units a year? If that's the product that you're looking for, we are not the factory for you because we don't have the facilities to support you. We might be able to do a slither of your product, but you need to have multiple factories to be able to cater to that, I mean, are you a brand who's doing leather jackets and a silk t-shirt and a silk jersey and a silk woven? Like, do you have a factory that does all of that, or are we just one of your factories which is doing that? So that is important. And I think one thing you mentioned earlier, Anna, was we have clients who come in and they have walked into a store and said, hey, I want my finishing to be like this, let's just call it a high-end French brand, right? And let's say I want my finishing to be looking like this. And you have to understand, houses like Chanel's and the Dior's and Balenciaga's have put years of development to resolve that product. And they've put years of that, they've sourced the right fabric, they've sourced the right fusing, they've sourced the right binding, and it's not happened overnight. Secondly, they could be producing, you don't know how many units they're producing. They could be producing 1,000 units, or they could be producing 10,000 units. So why are you comparing your product to the retail price of another brand? You need to look inwards and see what are your costs, And if your costs are coming for the product to be 200 pounds, after your margins, you should be selling it at 400 pounds at least. Otherwise, you won't be left with anything. Otherwise, you're just basically designing a collection and are left with no money to do production, or doing a production and left with no money to design your next collection. So you gotta keep on thinking.
Yeah, true. Do you ever do equity with the brands or collaborations? Or because I'm sure they're like, oh, can we do this type of setup instead? I'm sure you get approached.
Yeah, it is. I think it's an old school way of working where manufacturers have possibly given credit and taken equity. And I would like to do it. The vision, the dream I have is to create an incubation. Right.
Cool.
That's the dream. The dream is that I raise some capital from someone who is wanting to invest in creative businesses, but doesn't want to diffuse a risk for the supply chain. And all I'm doing is choosing maybe 5 or 6 designers, putting them under my wing as an incubator. And I'm just focusing on making sure the supply chain is kind of resolved. I'm not looking at PR. I'm not looking at their route to market. I'm not looking at their marketing. I'm just focused on the product. Stuff that designers quite often don't want to do because they want to think about getting the product on the runway. And the next thing is they want to get that check from the wholesaler, the retailer, because they delivered the product. Everything in between is an enigma. And I love that stuff. So give it to me.
Is that actually a plan, or are you is it a dream? How?
I think
tangible is this?
I think it is very tangible in the space that we are in. I haven't put any wheels in motion for it yet, because I think if I do that, like MAES London is very demanding business. Manufacturing is very, very demanding. Like, you have lots of supply chain issues. Like, we have a fabric, and I mean, I'm sitting in this podcast and I've had 4 people like wave out that window in front of me, and I've just been saying, hey, I can't do it right now. And what someone's waiting to hear is, like, because my manager's off sick, they just want someone to say, hey, is this pocket okay? You know, like, is this pocket, like, I've done this pocket, I'm struggling with this machine. Is this pocket okay? Or isn't binding okay? And they just need that constant validation, right? Because at the end of the day, responsibility is mine, the product is mine. But you can see the firefighting going in manufacturing business is so demanding that I wouldn't have headspace to actually think about this incubation program. So it would be a 5-year plan where we have an exit strategy phase for MAES London. Like, I step down as CEO, probably I'm a CMO, or probably a brand partner. And like, I have someone who's running the business while I can be incubating the designers, the next gen designers, perhaps, to be more supply chain ready.
You say it's demanding, but are there any things that you didn't foresee that you just didn't expect before starting being a manufacturer, that a big challenge, and it's okay, wow, I didn't know this was a big challenge?
Or what did I get myself into?
Yeah, I think we, of course, didn't foresee the pandemic. None of us saw that. We thought Brexit would be easier for us. Like, there was an opportunity in Brexit. Brexit has been hard for us, and like, being disconnected from that European free market has been really difficult, and the freedom of movement for people, because we have a lot of our staff is Eastern European, and that's because, I mean, I was having this chat with someone the other day, and UK was very, very pro manufacturing until, say, about like 995 kind of a thing, and then things started becoming more fast fashion, and they moved to like Eastern Europe, where we had amazing factories in Italy, Portugal, Romania, and all of these, and they created this new age talent of manufacturers, right? And then that manufacturing moved to China. So you can see, like, if manufacturing industry is moving, so is the skill set moving with that. And we haven't, in the UK, we haven't had any kind of like true big factories very popular for the last 20 years. So it's really hard for us to like fill our deficit in the skill set left by Brexit by people in the UK, unless they really enjoy manufacturing like the way I do. And Brexit was challenging in its own way, but the pandemic was really difficult, and that brought along cash flow. So we are sucked into, like, you know, we need to deliver our goods in order to get paid. And if the supply chain is affected in delivering our goods, we don't get paid. How do we pay our staff? So the cash.
But did you open? Were you open all the time? But how did you have to close? How were you?
How did we manage the pandemic?
Yeah.
So
because you were all in lockdowns as well. Sweden was never in lockdown. We didn't have any of that, but you guys were in complete shutdown.
Exactly. And yeah, so we were shut from, I think, March 23rd in UK until, like, I can't remember the dates on this, but like it was sometime in late May 2020 that we were allowed to reopen. Manufacturers were allowed to reopen. So we were in lockdown, but I used to cycle to work every day because China had opened. And I mean, the rules were you could go to work if you can't work from home. And not only is my livelihood depending on me, I have like 15 other people who were dependent on the livelihood of MAES London. And this is before like the furlough scheme or the cash flow. Like, all I wanted to do was protect my people's earnings, right? Like, how are they going to pay their wages? How are they going to pay the rent? How are they going to pay the tuition, or whatever their expenses are? I just wanted to protect my people's income. And what I did was, China started reopening, DHL started coming in, and DHL would be like, hey, your 20 parcels of fabric are being delivered today between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., like right in the middle of the pandemic. And I'm cycling to work, and I'm like sitting on my phone with no, like emails were dead. No one was answering for anything. Like I'm like literally like tidying the studio, waiting for this DHL to come in. Come 4 p.m., DHL doesn't come in. Oh, the driver's off sick, etc. So I was going in every day because my idea was like, if the fabric comes in, I can cut it and I can dispatch it to my team who we set them up with their machines at home, and they could work from home so that I could sell this product back in order to get some money into the business so I can pay them back from it. So I know that there were like amazing struggles, but what that allowed us to do, this is like pre the 25th of May, it allowed us to create a funnel to make our system and a business much more streamlined. Unfortunately, there were a lot of studios who did go bust, and fortunately, we were in a position to kind of like take over their employees and take over the machines. So we expanded our setup, and we actually grew through the pandemic because we just met our deadlines, and we respected our clients, because our clients get paid when their stock gets to the warehouse. So we can get paid when our clients get paid. Yeah. So we needed to understand the whole industry, and I think that empathy took us a long way through the pandemic.
But you're still having one facility, correct? Or do you have several now?
No, we just have Tottenham Hale. We've just taken the studio next door. So we started with 4,000 square foot here. Now we have 5,000 square foot, which I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's one of the bigger factories in London. And that is crazy because London rental is crazy. I mean, if I was doing the job that I'm doing out of London, like, in the suburbs, I could possibly do it. But the staff and the workforce is in London. So, and our designers can send the stuff, but our workforce is in London. And it's hard to create this workforce at this scale out of London. So in the UK, at least for us.
And are most of your clients from the UK, or are they from all over the world?
No, we have a few Swedish clients. We've got a few Danish clients, some French clients. But I would say 70%, maybe 80% of our clients are English or are British. So yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
We haven't touched Americas yet.
Yeah.
That would be the next chapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will arrive when we're there. But we also want to push our business more towards the development side, which has been the strength through pandemic, because studios shut down, so the pattern cutters couldn't go to the designers, and or the garment tech couldn't go there. So suddenly, jobs were being lost. Unfortunately, like I had so many of my friends who lost their jobs during the pandemic, but we were open, and we had a pattern cutter, and we had a garment tech, and we were PD. So what designers started doing was funneling. They were using our capacity at 100%, and this is my philosophy, that there's this Japanese concept, and I think it's called Kinetsu, but I don't want to like offend anyone if it's not. But I'm a big fan of the Toyota way, and in Toyota way it says like you gotta like support your supply chain. Only if you support your supply chain up and down, all of the people in the supply chain will work, right? Like for example, if Toyota cars are selling crazy, amazing, that means the leather seat supplier is actually benefiting out of the Toyota car selling crazy. That means the leather supplier is benefiting. That means the wax cotton supplier who's sewing these leather seats are benefiting. That means the wax supplier is benefiting. That means the cotton thread supplier is benefiting. Yeah. And if we actually look at the supply chain like that, if the designer is selling well, that means we are doing well. And if we are doing well, that means our team is doing well. That means the threads that we buy from are doing, they have more sales. The plastic hangers that we're trying to remove into paper hangers are doing better because we now have the MOQ to support paper hangers. So we gotta like keep it lean and keep it straight and like support each other up and down the supply chain. That's my philosophy.
More business for everybody.
More business and there's so much going around, So competition should be healthy. So that's good.
Good. Let's turn a little bit our discussion towards sustainability and what you're seeing brands, because of course there's been, especially in the last 5 years, there's been a huge shift. What do you see? What are the requirements that you're seeing now from designers and from the design houses that you have to implement and adapt? Of course, your operations are already, they're local, they're quality. So all that is almost already integrated. But what are you seeing that is happening now that wasn't there 5 years ago?
Well, and this is not generally from my clients, but just from the industry as a whole, and I'm lucky enough to be invited to these amazing podcasts with these brilliant minds. So there's a lot of knowledge transfer, and I think the industry as a whole is getting more aware about using the word sustainable in its right form. I think 5 years ago, people were like, hey, I'm going to use like bamboo silk and that's going to call me sustainable, but I'm going to produce it in a factory that I've never been to, and that makes me a sustainable brand, but I'm going to sell it in a plastic hanger with a plastic bag. I think sustainability is a more way of life for even a human being. Like, you can't be, I have nothing against fast fashion, but I can't be buying fast fashion and buying like 700 pieces of clothing a year and wear only 5, but then have like almond milk and go all vegan, or, it has to be a holistic approach towards sustainability as an individual. And the same thing has to apply for a brand. Like if you really want to claim to be sustainable, look at your supply chain, look at where your products are made, look at how you're packaging, look at how you're delivering. Are you using a green courier, or are you using something? Are you shipping back? Are your lead times 2 weeks? Is it small lead times? Someone will have to use air freight compared to ship. Can you give green credits? And I think those conversations are becoming quite key. Do you need to buy more fabric to produce less clothes, or can you use dead stock fabric, or can you be more smart about your waste? And these questions are coming up quite often in the conversations that I'm having with people in the industry, and people are also looking at, should I call myself sustainable because I'm doing this, or can I define how I am sustainable and what I need to do more to call myself a truly sustainable brand? And I think the recent guidelines from Kering have been amazing in defining some of those, bullet points. And I guess some of the Swedish houses have been fined as well, which has been, I think it's a good eye opener, because the industry leads by example, and some of those examples have, made designers, young designers, really think about, am I sustainable if I'm doing all of that?
How much of the educational part do you actually have to do with the different designers and the houses? Because I'm sure because you're in the trenches, you're in it, you're seeing what's happening with the suppliers, you're seeing what's happening with all parts of the things that are incorporated in the product, which maybe not all designers or all brands are aware of. How much of the education are you telling them, okay, this is actually not so sustainable? Could you choose option B? Are you suggesting, are you being open and kind of educational about this, their approach?
It's a good question. I think some of our houses that work with us, they have their own sustainability team, and perhaps they might have a lot more experience. Even though I'm in the trenches, they might have a lot more data and research around their product. So I wouldn't feel comfortable kind of giving them any of my opinions unless asked. But I feel like being in the trenches gives us so much experience, and I would like to empower some of our younger designers or younger brands who possibly don't have the resources to have their own sustainability department to be able to use us and empower them to make some right choices. And I think that part of the education, I feel it comes by working with us. We're not actually monetizing that experience at all. We don't sit down and say, hey, sit down with us for da-da-da-da. While you're working with us, you're getting that experience on the product that we're working with. We do have consultation packages for young brands who come in and they want to review their supply chain, and that would be a separate sit-alone one-on-one session where we target and focus only on specific things that they want to create, like range planning, how to reach the minimum order for this fabric that they want to use. If they have dead stock fabric, how can they improve their supply chain? All of those questions we do one-on-one. And that consultation is very popular, but we don't have enough hours in the day to be catering to all of those, which is why your platform is so amazing, because I love the fact that you have all of those filter checks and the manuals and the guides and the exercises, because those are the common questions that we get. But your platform is just amazing because people can go there and self-train themselves to be ready to come to us.
And also the thing is, the industry changes so fast. So even though you knew one thing last year, it doesn't necessarily have to be true this year or right now. So that's the thing with the beauty of this industry, because it changes constantly and there's constantly something new happening with either material technologies or with manufacturing or with, design or everything, like the entire NFT space and the whole metaverse. That's a completely another conversation. Totally. But everything is it's so constantly moving. And that's why, that's why personally I love this industry. But I'm thinking, what is it that you love about running your business the most? Like, why are you like, this is it?
I think, what do I love? Like, what is not to love? And let's just start that way, right? That cliche of like, oh, I can work from anywhere and like I'm like my own boss and all of that. That's not true. Definitely not in a manufacturing. That's not true. I have to be at work every day. Even though I'm my own boss, I'm dancing to other people's demands and supplies. And like, so that myth is just on Pinterest and Instagram, like, the boss lady and the boss babe and all of that. I think in the trenches and running a real business has so many challenges. And like, I'm a big supporter of entrepreneurship. I'm a big supporter of following your dreams, but I'm also very calculative about things. Like, you were talking about like trends changing and fabrics changing. I talk about this quite often to my designers and I'm like, great. Like, I know bamboo leather is in trend right now, but like you're still sitting on like 500 meters of fabric that you haven't used because, like, what are you going to do? Like, that's going to be affecting your bottom line. Do you have a way to sell it? Can you donate it someplace, or can you create a partnership where you can leverage that partnership as a marketing budget? So all of these questions are quite key for me in terms of like monetary point of view or the business point of view, right? I like doing business because I think it's creative. Like, it comes with challenges on an everyday basis, and you have to like find ways of like overcome that challenge or create a solution. And it's a very, like, business owners are very solution driven. If business owners are problem collectors, things won't go forward because there's so many problems going like coming towards your way, and you're just like basically dodging and you're choosing which one you want to focus on and which one is like water over the back. Like, it's okay, I don't, you're hardened by that problem because it happens every day. So, and do I miss my regular day-to-day job where my money came in at the end of the month? I knew what I was doing. Perhaps, yes. I like that security. But would I go back to it? Or never. Like, I think it's very empowering and it's very liberating to run your own business because the potential is endless. Like, you're limiting your own potential. So if you want to like go and do that, you figure a way to do that. But I think when you're in a job, like, it can be quite hard if you're ambitious or if you're a dreamer like me to kind of like get to the next level, because you have to like, wait for someone else to like come through or create an opening that you possibly don't have the control of.
How do you up level yourself? Like, how do you, because everybody's talking about mentors is, like, how do you, because of course you learn so much, you get to a degree at the place, and then you're like, now I want to do this. And then it's like far off, but you don't have the skills nor the mental, mentality or what the tools. What's your way of getting to that level? How are you doing it?
Yeah, well, I've had a coach for now 4 years. Both a personal coach and a business coach. And I think that has been pivotal personally for me, because I came to a stage when, especially when I was starting the business, there were quite a few times I was limiting my own self because I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that, so I can't do it, right? Like, that's a story that I've told in my head, like, oh, I'm from India, I've got an accent, so I can't pick up the phone and like give, do a sales pitch or whatever it would be. Like, those are the stories that I had in my head. And my business coach was like, hey, Diana, your name is Diana. You don't sound Indian. you're in London. There are so many people from across the world in this, like no one in London does not have an accent. So like get over it, pick up the phone, call that client, right? And it's just like how to like have these stories that you have formed in your own head to rewire them and to put you back on path. Sometimes it's hard to do it yourself. So I have a coach who kind of like helps me through some of my challenges and like helps me like re-narrate the stories that I have said to myself and like say it in a different way. I do spend a lot of my time on mental health, and like I learn how to coach because I feel like if I'm like through my coaching, I've learned how to listen and learn how to coach people and ask for what the problem is instead of giving a solution. So that's it. But something that I love doing is going for walks with my dog. He is absolutely the best thing ever, and like give him a hug and like tuffle with him, and like the serotonin you get from like playing with a pet has been really good for me.
I'm thinking, I mean, you started just a few years back and your business survived the pandemic and now you're growing. What's your vision for MAES? What if we have this interview in a couple of years, where are you then with your business?
She's in US already.
Yeah, I'm definitely in US.
World domination.
Yeah, exactly, world domination.
Well, I think I would love MAES London to be synonymous with luxury manufacturing in the next 5 years. Like if you're a luxury manufacturer, I would probably want people to say, are you producing with MAES London? Or do you have any part of your supply chain coming in and out of MAES London? So that is a branding that we want to like go for. That is MAES London's vision. But how I can personally bring MAES London to that stage is by talking about manufacturing being a really successful career path for many people in the industry. How I can talk about manufacturing, making it more integrated into the design process, our luxury manufacturing, or probably even revamping the idea of manufacturers, right? If I can convince people who I have never met that manufacturing is actually a really good, sexy, stable fashion job out there, then my job is done, because that's when people will start talking to manufacturers as equals. And I think the mission that I want to do is like designers and manufacturers should be partners, and we can do that by being more transparent about our supply chain. Like people should know like how much and what I'm doing with my staff members. Like do we have Christmas parties, and do we have like biannual chair massages because they work fashion week, and I just want to like make sure they're being taken care of. I would probably want designers to ask and go and visit their factories and ask the factories how are the people, meet the people, right? Because if you're putting your heart and soul into designing this beautiful product, you better find a team who's putting their heart and soul into making that product for thousands of your customers. And if that's not happening, there's a massive disconnect.
Of course, for all the emerging designers and for all the designers that want to become a house, what tactics or tips or solutions would you give them? What would you say, do this and that would be really good for you in terms of manufacturing, in terms of collection, like structure and building a product and putting a product into the world? What would you say would be really important for their success?
I think my first advice to designers would be, it's quite difficult to do it all by yourself. It's not impossible, but it's quite difficult to do it all by yourself. Like we can't underestimate the process, the design process, which the brand is relying on. And that's why houses have a creative director and a CEO and a CEO, because that's a job in itself. And that's why you could also have like some designer duos, like where one is like the creative side and one is the operation side. So we have to, my first advice is to designers that trying to do it all by yourself in the short term may be good to start it, but you should try to start looking at your business as an organizational structure and like define where you want it to be, right? You don't have to end up, if you don't want to be a house, that's absolutely okay, but you're still running a business, and businesses can come in different scales. So structure your business, first of all, and define what your business needs. If a business needs someone who, like if you don't have a supply chain expertise or experience, get someone in to guide you through the supply chain. If you don't have like PR experience, get someone in to like guide your PR, but budget that out. So understand your overheads, because that's the ship you're running. And trying to do it all, you could be spreading yourself thin. And unfortunately, the more people you get later in your business without a foundation which is strong, everyone might be quite difficult to latch onto the business. And I think I see a lot of businesses by escalating quite quick without systems in place, and then getting a factory in, and the factory would be like, hey, I don't even know, it's a repeat style, great, but last season repeat style pattern wasn't working, so how did that factory do it? Did they have any challenges? Like, no, that factory never told us any problem, they didn't have a problem. I'm like, yeah, like, but there is a problem. Or if your system is not strong and you don't have history of your what your bestsellers were in the past, and you don't have a merchandiser, like having that information, you could be designing, your bestseller could have been a little black dress and you're designing like floral printed jumpsuits because that's what you want to design. So having that data is quite important. So my advice to designers is always like, look at your ship, like see what it needs to kind of run it. It doesn't have to be a ship, it can be a boat, but if it's a boat, just have enough space for 2 people, make sure you don't have any holes, and know that your distance that you're going is not into the ocean, but just across the river. But if you're planning to go into the ocean, get your ship, get it rounded, have a team, make sure there's a captain, so that you can enjoy the ride as much.
I love that metaphor. Super strong, super strong. We're ending strong.
Fantastic.
And now the last question, what motivates you? What keeps what brings you up out of bed every morning? Like, let's go, let's do this.
I think my team definitely is very motivating. And like the ship I'm running is a ship where people want to be on the ship. My team's working hard for the success of this business, and I'm working hard for the success of them. And I think that collaborative experience is really empowering for both of us. So that my team definitely is something that motivates me every day. But the big motivation that I want to achieve is that I think, or the mission that I'm trying to achieve is that I truly believe that our craft that we are doing is kind of dying. And if we don't preserve it for the next 20, 25 years, we could skip 2 generations, and then we would have to rely, there's a lot of techniques that are already redundant right now, so we need to preserve that technique and look historically and keep on doing things with our hand. And there's a study which says that by 2050, there's going to be only 2% of the jobs that we're doing right now will be there. There will be automation, and automation is great because it can give, for example, smocking is hard and it's backbreaking, but if there's a machine which is smocking, provided that a person knows how to smock, they can design a machine to smock it. So that knowledge is something very, very dear to me. And the mission that I'm on is to make sure luxury manufacturing and the skills and the craftsmanship that we're doing, there's money and the right people get paid for the right jobs, and that craft is preserved.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Fantastic.
That's it.
That's it. The ending is like up here. I love it. So much wisdom and so much golden nuggets, and there will be so many inspirational aspects of what you've said here today that I think the listeners are gonna be mind blown up. So thank you so much for everything that you shared.
Thank you
very gently. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, pleasure.